We shall. Right. This is good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are and wherever you may join us. This is the Consciencism Philosophical and Ideological Study Group. We have been studying philosophy and ideology with respect to the decolonization of the African continent for a few years now, and we are still continuing to do so. My name is Brother Kwabi, and I don't always, but I'm chairing today's meeting. So yes, so welcome. If you're also joining us on our YouTube channel, we thank you. If you are here, you haven't already done so, please go onto our YouTube channel, and I'll share the link in a moment. And please like or subscribe to our channels, to our YouTube channel. Yeah, go and subscribe so we can increase our subscription. Also share with others. Yeah. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, General, for coming. Naki for coming. Sister Ama, Brother Ifo, Sister Tapuwa, Sister Portia, Brother Pigeon, Brother Welcome, and then myself. Today, Sister Tapuwa has volunteered to read for us. So welcome all of you. I'll hand over now to our dear Sister Tapuwa to kindly read for us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Here goes. In a way, it is not the philosophers of today, but the natural scientists who are the successors of the ancient philosophers. Attentive to the phenomena of radiation, that of spontaneous emission of particles of matter, and Newton's silence over the source of the original motion of bodies. One can, if an inert philosopher, embrace a thoroughgoing animism and infuse non-living matter with a plethora of spirits, or one can correctly abandon the now groundless denial of the capacity of matter for self-motion. Indeed, the philosophical ancestor of all Western philosophers, Thales, was stared in the face by both alternatives. He had said that the world was not to be explained in terms of supernature, and had accordingly said that everything was water. It now fell upon him to explain why hosts of things were not watery. The minimum he could do was to put a principle of change in water itself, so that by the operation of that principle, a transmutation from the state we know as water to other things would be possible. But if he was not to abandon his first statement that everything is water, the principle must permit only geometrical changes in water. That is, in its operation. It must be limited to the rarefication and condensation of water. For this, the principle needed to be a principle of motion. Hence, he said that things were full of gods. Though this smells unpleasantly of animism, he only meant through asserting the capacity of matter for spontaneous self-motion to reject its inertness. In saying things were full of gods, he did not mean that every object was the locus of some god. For his whole philosophical revolution consisted in his neutralizing of the gods, his rendering them irrelevant for purposes of explanation of the objects and processes of the world. It is his idiom, not his thought, which was picturesque. Just as Aristotle was later to recover the forms from Plato's heaven and restore them to matter, so Thales was now retrieving the source of motion and the cause of processes from the priest's heaven for matter. This is the end of
Thank
our
you.
reading.
Thank you. Would you care, if you don't mind me asking, to read for us again?
I don't mind at all.
Thank you. Please read for us again whilst we still listen, because it's 2 paragraphs and there's a lot in there. And different people will latch onto different paragraphs naturally,
Yes.
which is your right to do. So please, thank you very much. Please read for us again. Thank you.
I will. My pleasure. Here goes. In a way, it is not the philosophers of today, but the natural scientists who are the successors of the ancient philosophers. Attentive to the phenomenon of radiation, that of spontaneous emission of particles of matter, and Newton's silence over the source of the original motion of bodies. One can, if an inert philosopher, embrace a thoroughgoing animism and infuse non-living matter with a plethora of spirits. Or one can correctly abandon the now groundless denial of the capacity of matter for self-motion. Indeed, the philosophical ancestor of all Western philosophers, Thales, was stared in the face by both alternatives. He had said that the world was not to be explained in terms of supernature, and had accordingly said that everything was water. It now fell upon him to explain why hosts of things were not watery. The minimum he could do was to put a principle of change in water itself, so that by the operation of that principle, a transmutation from the state we know as water to other things would be possible. But if he was not to abandon his first statement that everything is water, the principle must permit only geometrical changes in water, that is, in its operation. It must be limited to the rarefication and condensation of water. For this, the principle needed to be a principle of motion. Hence, he said that things were full of gods. Though this smells unpleasantly of animism, he only meant through asserting the capacity of matter for spontaneous self-motion to reject its inertness. In saying things were full of gods, he did not mean that every object was the locus of some god, for his whole philosophical revolution consisted in his neutralizing of the gods, his rendering them irrelevant for purposes of explanation of the objects and processes of the world. It is his idiom, not his thought, which was picturesque. Just as Aristotle was later to recover the forms from Plato's heaven and restore them to matter, so Thales was now retrieving the source of motion and the cause of processes from the priest's heaven for matter. This is
Wow.
the end
Thank you
of our
so much.
reading.
Thank you so much
You're welcome.
for that double reading, especially bearing in mind that it's such too long together. Actually, two long paragraphs together. Now, usually in the past, we even when we dealt with one paragraph, it wasn't this long. Okay, brothers and sisters, you have heard our dear Sister Tapuwa read for us, not once but twice. You've had time, I believe, to not only ingest but to digest what she's been reading. Apart from the fact that you are expected to read these things before you come to class. Having said that, I'd like to open the floor for us to
apologies for
share our thinking. Yes, sir.
Apology for subjecting the class today to a longer paragraph. It was not intentional.
Yes, but how is that your fault? We deal with paragraphs, don't we? Even if we had done just that paragraph next week, it would still be long. So, yeah, no, it's fine. Don't apologize at all. Although we accept your apology. Yes, so brothers and sisters, the floor is open. Who would like to start for us? Who would like to
I'll
start?
go ahead.
Is that Sister Portia?
Yes, I have done the reading.
Yes, Sister Portia, hold on. I want to see if somebody else would volunteer. Perhaps Sister Portia, is anybody else who would like also to go first? Brother Ifo. Okay, Sister Portia, please pause. I'd like Brother Ifo to go first. The reason is that we can hear a male voice also, apart from myself. So, Brother Ifo, please proceed. Thank you.
Just for clarification, you're presuming that I am.
Thank you. Oh, you want us to go through words?
No. I'm just saying do not presume people's gender. But that's a different story for a different day. We'll get to that sometime.
Right.
Back to the topic at hand.
Yeah, hold on. Before you go on.
What?
I just realized that before you proceed, I just realized that we haven't dealt with certain words, which we normally do. So let's deal with those words first, and then you can come in, Brother Ifo. The words I have listed are radiation, plethora, animism, rarefaction, condensation, idiom, supernature, inertness, and picturesque. Does that capture it for everyone else? Is there another word you'd like to add to that?
Rarefaction, locus, pictures.
Yeah, what rarefaction was the other one?
Locus.
Locus. Okay, as in L-O-C-U-S, yeah?
L-O-C-U-S.
C-U-S, yeah, okay. Any other word, anyone?
Emission and radiation.
Yeah, radiation of, yeah, I have that down. So we've added locus to it. Okay, I think that captures it all. Okay, so let's go through them. Let's start with locus first.
Do you have transmutation there as well?
Transmutation, yeah, I haven't got that. No thanks. Transmutation. Okay, so I've added transmutation to the list. So can we start with transmutation then, yeah? And then work backwards. So I'll give the definition as far as I know it, and then you can add. Anybody, please, this is an open session. Just jump in and add. Yeah, you don't need to raise your hand. Thank you. Transmutation is the act of changing from one form, nature, or substance into another. So that's transmutation, especially the alchemical conversion of base metals into gold. So when you change a metal into gold, that is transmutation. So that's an example of transmutation. So essentially, transmutation is changing from one form to another. Yeah. So that is what transmutation is. Locus basically.
Or maybe also maybe one substance to another, like from a base metal to gold.
Yes.
From one to another.
Yes, that's correct. And then locus is basically the word location. If that comes to mind, everyone, you know what a location is. That's what locus is. It's a specific position, point, or place where something occurs. Yeah. Those of you who are aware of the Cartesian coordinates in mathematics, that's also seen as locus. So, for example, a point 0, 0, seen as the origin, and then maybe 1, 2, or 3, 2, or 5, 5. Those are all specific points on the Cartesian coordinates, what you normally call the graph. Yeah, that's what I mean. It was invented by the philosopher Descartes, so it's called Cartesian coordinates in mathematics. So locus is a specific position, location. Then picturesque, the word quaint comes in here again. Basically, picturesque means visually charming or quaint, as in a painting. So when something is picturesque, it means as a picture, it's visual, charming. Again, please feel free to jump in, anyone. Inertness is a lack of physical movement, energy, or chemical reactivity, like helium. The chemical helium, it can't react. So we say it's passive. Another way we say it's passive, didn't we? Supernature means that which exists beyond or above the natural order. So when it says supernature, it means a supernatural realm. That is, if you believe in the supernatural, then for you, there is a supernature. Then we've got idiom. Idiom means a phrase whose meaning cannot be deduced from its individual words. We take the words together, that phrase has a meaning that the words themselves do not necessarily mean. Then we go to condensation. Condensation is, for example, change of a gas or vapor to a liquid. So that's condensation. Those who are familiar with our local gin, that's how they are produced, if you recall. Yeah. The ogogoro or akpeteshi is a condensation of the fume when you cook the palm wine. It rises through the tubes and then it condenses, and that is our local gin, if you like. Yeah. So that's what we call condensation, when it compresses, when you change it from gas or vapor to a liquid. Then rarefaction is to reduce in density and pressure. So rarefaction just means reduce the density or pressure. Animism is a belief that natural objects, phenomena, and the universe possess souls or spirits. Some people believe that everything has a spirit. That is animism. The word plethora simply means a lot. Plethora means excessive abundance or oversupply. Radiation just means that the thing is able to give out energy due to powers within itself. It's not coming from outside, it's from within itself. So those are the words. Right. So let's now go to Brother Ifo. We will deal with the issue of male and female voice. I think Brother Ifo was saying that you should not assume people's gender, which is correct. But I think I know those of us here enough to know whether you are male or female, without going into the gender argument. So, Brother Ifo, over to you, please. Thank you.
Just to clarify, I identify as a grandmother. So
you identify as a
grandmother. So be mindful that you do not know what you think you know about other people.
You identify as a grandmother.
Yes, that's the closest to my identity. But let's not talk about that right now.
Hold on. I want to talk about
it. It's not complicated.
It is complicated for me.
That's not my problem.
Can brother, we are not arguing. We are here to learn. I can learn something from you.
It's a conversation to be had in private.
Brother Ifo.
Yes.
Brother Ifo. When you say that you identify as a grandmother, what does that mean? You need to educate us. What does that mean?
Do you know what a grandmother is?
Yes, I have a grandmother.
Good. So if you have a loving, caring, compassionate grandmother, then you know that who and what I identify as.
Does that mean I don't understand. What does that mean biologically?
You know who your grandmother is, then you know who I am. There's nothing, it's not complicated. If I told you I was a father, you would know what that means. So I'm confused as to why you don't know what a grandmother is.
Okay, all right. Proceed and share your thinking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's a couple of things here. When they talk about the philosophical ancestor of all Western philosophers, and then they refer to Thales, that is historically inaccurate. Because if we look at the foundation of so-called Western philosophy, it is actually in Kemet. So I still don't understand, but I understand, but I think it is factually incorrect. But that's one thing. And then secondly, there's this interesting thing where we talk about water.
Yeah, hold on, brother, before you go on, sorry to ask you. So who do you consider to be the philosophical ancestor of all Western philosophers?
I don't know their names off the top of my head, but I know that there were those so-called Western philosophers. Most of them claim, if you look at the root of what they were teaching, they're things that we learned in Egypt. So they are African thought processes that they watered down and then pretended that the roots were not African.
But we know that there's no such thing as Western philosophy. We know that what they are calling Western philosophy are our philosophies that they have if you like, reorganized and call it Western philosophy. And we also know that the philosophers that came from Greece came to Africa to learn at the feet of our priests. So we know that so-called Western philosophers learned from us. The question here is, in terms of those Western philosophers, who do you regard as their ancestor? Not the African ones, the Western ones.
I refuse to make statements that are factually incorrect.
Yeah, that's what I want to understand. Why
so
do you?
Nobody in Europe would be considered an ancestor.
But it's Western philosophy. He was referring to Western philosophers, not African.
I know, but I will not refer to anybody in Europe. If you stole something from me and moved it to your house, it is still my property, even if you claim it is yours.
Okay, all right. Continue. Thanks.
So I will not respect the thief's claims to stuff that they stole. In academic world, they will call that plagiarism. So I would not respect the plagiarizers. I would only respect the source.
All right. So
that's my political and philosophical stance. I give no respect to thieves.
Yes, but we do not argue with that, because it's our position when we looked at Aristotle that they stole our philosophies anyway. So that is not new to us. That is something we here accept. So anyway, please proceed. Thank you.
Okay. So because of my analysis from what I'm seeing here is that there seems to be a tendency among the confused folks in Europe to not want to accept terminology that Africans might have used. So terminologies of God, terminologies of spirit. And so they make up nonsensical stuff like water or watery as a way to not actually acknowledge the wisdom that was already shared. And then they try to get everything to fit within their way of plagiarizing and stealing things. So that's sort of what I am seeing here. So the animism being seen as unpleasant is as we see that in the middle of the almost last paragraph, it is very, very telling. It reeks of anti-blackness, anti-Africanness, and anti-indigenous sentiment. So it's a philosophy that seems to be trying to render irrelevant the ideologies of our ancestors and even my ideology. But that's what I am seeing from what is being shared. Now, if you take those things outside, the fundamentals seem to be somewhat okay. But I am always leery of when you build a foundation without giving proper attribution, as they say in university. I will yield the mic on that. Thank you.
Okay. Brother Ifo, I'd like to draw your attention to materialism as a philosophical idea. Materialism philosophically, from the point of view of Consciencism, does not say that it doesn't accept spirits or the idea of spirits or ghosts. It does. The question is, philosophically, the question is, which is primary? Whether spirits are primary or whether matter is primary. So that is a philosophical question. But
I think the search for primacy is also a philosophical question.
so sorry?
The search for primary is a search for domination.
Yeah, so I'm trying to explain that materialism doesn't say that there are no spirits, there are no ghosts, etc. That's not what it's saying. It's saying that they are there, but what is primary? And so when the word materialism is used, sometimes people think that it's negating or that it means physicalism. And I've tried to explain in the past that it's not about physicalism, because we all here understand that matter goes beyond that which only can be touched. There are things we can touch or see, but which are also matter. So it's not. So brother Anunnaki is here. He told us some time ago that the way that they understand when you say something is spirit, that for him, he explained this, that spirit for him is just energy. Yeah, that's what he means by spirit. He means energy. Now, if someone says that spirit is energy, again, that way of framing it is not denied by materialism. You see, because materialism also accepts that E equals mc squared, that energy is equal to mass times the speed of light squared. So there is no contradiction here. The issue is which is primary. Now, you don't have to accept the primariness of matter. If by that you are saying you are an idealist, you are free to be an idealist. That is fine. There are many Africans who are idealists. But this class is a materialist class. And so the philosophical position is that we don't accept the extremes at both ends, by which I mean we don't accept materialists, extremists who say that spirits don't exist, ghosts don't exist, they are all matter. We don't accept that, because that will feed into what you are saying, that they want to dominate us by denying a reality that we accept. On the other hand, we don't accept extreme idealism that says that everything is spirit, everything is a ghost, everything is a spirit, that matter doesn't exist. Again, that is an extreme that we don't accept. But anyone is free to believe whatever they like. But this is our philosophical position. So thank you. I thought I should clarify that. Thank you. Feel free to come back if you want to before I move to the next person. All right.
No,
you're not saying anything, so I take it you're not coming back. So let's move. Sorry.
Brother Kwame.
Yes.
I think I heard Brother Ifo saying, if you go for the question of which one is primary,
yes,
then it would be susceptible to domination. Did I hear him correctly?
Yeah, that's what he said. And my response was that it's susceptible to domination if one is a hardcore materialist who denies the existence of spirit. We don't. That's the point I was making to Brother Ifo. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the point I was making. Yeah.
Thank you.
So he is right to say that if you subscribe to what one would call hardcore Western Marxism, because there are those like that, then they deny what for us is real, if you like. Yeah. And we all here know, if you don't know, I think you should, that Nkrumah described himself as a Marxist and a non-denominational Christian. That's how he described himself. Then later on, he said he was just a Marxist. But even Nkrumah himself never subscribed to hardcore materialism. That says that spirits don't exist. These things don't exist. Ancestors don't exist, etc., etc. The only thing that exists is matter, however you define. He never said that. So I hope that is clear. Thank you. Let's now go to, we've heard from Brother Ifo. Let's go to Sister Portia, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to share my initial thinking, and I'm going to share my additional thinking. So the first paragraph, there are two paragraphs. The first paragraph, my thinking is that the first sentence says, after ancient philosophers, there are additional people observing the physical and biological world that are worlds that we people, persons are in. The second sentence says, a non-active observer could see spirituality in such a world, could see non-living matter having energies, and could stay away from denying that matter has self-focus. The paragraph number 2, the first sentence, there are 11 sentences. The first sentence says, it expounds on that last sentence of paragraph 1. And then the second sentence is a contention by someone, basically going, no supernatural and everything has water as a foundation. The third sentence, there becomes a challenge with that, said by the same someone, is to say, what is the challenge is what is not a watered foundation. Pardon me, not said by the same one. The challenge is then, or an argument that could be brought in is, okay, if everything has water as a foundation, what is not a watered foundation? That goes to the fourth sentence, which shows the caveat or a point to be added, then trying to prove the point in the second sentence that's arguing everything has water as a foundation. And then moving on to that caveat being expressed in the fifth sentence, that is to show still, even with saying, okay, everything has water as a foundation, there still is a limitation in how water is argued to be the foundation of all. And in the sixth sentence here is just it's a point of motion, not the literal sense of a point of motion, but in that sentence, a point of motion is there. And then the seventh sentence is that some matters, and then this is still an opinion by that said person, some matter is full of spiritualities. And then the eighth sentence says, here again, matter has capacity for self-motion, which is active. And then going on to the ninth sentence, it goes back to that said opinion that's saying, wait up, hold up, every object is not full of energies, and in fact spiritualities are not even relevant, and there's a focus on dismissing this concept of energies or spiritualities. And then the 10th sentence is seems like it's a point of being hopeful and not being hopeful, or easier to know. It goes back to that very phrase some people say, to be or not to be. That's what came into the mind of the indoctrination from Europeanized teachings of poetry and literature. So then the 11th sentence has a point that I think sums up, is basically, guess what? That opinion, or any of the opinions that were mentioned up here, can change. So now to my point, I continue to be transparent about what I'm going through. One, because it's a record and it can't be misinterpreted, what I'm going through when I record it. And then two, it's not always looking out to see what change outside needs to be. I'm trying to look now where I'm at in this point in my life, where what change I have to do. I'm still a human rights defender. I'm still hoping to be a healthy revolutionary who contributes to continued liberation of a Kibulan in this diaspora presently. At this same time, there are things that I need to face and walk through. So when I was looking through all of this, it made me think of 2 points. How confusing. One point is how confusing I have found, and arguably why I am still at now at 54, going on 55, not where I could have been. And that doesn't mean I haven't had successes. It just these systems are quite confusing. And when I was looking at this text, and Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, of course, is intellect, intelligent, common sense in his own regard, I found it so confusing, and it was a microcosm for me of how confusing racial capitalist systems are. The easy example I can think of is when they were saying in the United States of America that there could be no mixing of the perceived races. Yet, if you go all the way back to when our ancestors were trafficked to this region of the world, we know there was a lot of mixing of perceived races. So there's the statement, kind of like there's water and foundation of all. There's the blanketed statement said by someone. Maybe that was for economic power. Maybe that was to hold on to more not moral power, but land power. Whatever the case, it was a blanketed statement. And in that blanketed statement, what soon proved to be true is that there were mixings of a perceived race. And so, of course, it becomes confusing. It becomes confusing from the child who now knows that that person, the rapist, raped. They could never utter those words, of course, because then they could lose a limb or even death. But that child knows that that rapist is their father, but can never say it, because on the blanketed statement, there's no mixing of perceived races. And so when I saw this text, it just reminded me of my thinking of how confusing and how nonsensical, how it is confusing, devastating, impractical, horrid racial capitalist systems are, with these blanketed statements by some men. They're usually men, middle-aged men, usually white appearing men, who come up with all of this after they've stole it to King Brother Ifo, I pardon about that, to Grandmother Ifo's point, how it shows that not only they have stole it, but then when they stole it, they just haven't even made sense of it, and then try to force that theft, that stealing, now try to force it on mass amounts of the world. So first point is that to me, this text is a microcosm of racial capitalist system and its confusing, horrid, harmful presence in these worlds. And perhaps that I had not been a part of it, I would have been, I don't know, in other galaxies by now. But nonetheless, I'm here. So I'm looking to the second point. I'm looking at myself and I'm saying, how do I stay out of these racial capitalist systems? And how do I not do more harm than I did when I was totally unconscious and thought that was I'm unconscious. So I'm really, really looking into the mirror, not trying to quote any Michael Jackson there, but I'm really looking in the mirror and trying to most of my time now where I'm back into my family that bore me, trying to face and walk through those fears and not let racial capitalist system be in my head, because if I let it be in my head, I'll think that I'm a loser. I'll think that I have nothing to contribute, all the horrid ills that don't make sense. So I'm trying every 24 hours to connect to the ancestors. And in that regard, I would describe, and I'll wrap up, I would describe myself presently. If you had to have 2 words to describe me, I would say that I'm beyond words. And then 2 phrases that I came across when I gave my presentation last Saturday, on the 20th of June, 2026 at Consciencism Study Group. It was Ilosi, Amatango. And those resonated with me, that if I just stay close with Ilosi, Amatango, I will be okay. Thank you.
I've shared a paragraph from the introduction with all of us because Sister Portia's methodology of personalizing these discussions, you notice she always does that as part of her methodology. And I want to draw our attention to this paragraph in introduction to say that it is part of the expectation of Consciencism that we all do that. Yeah, I'm not saying that you necessarily need to follow her methodology exactly as she does in the class, but I'm saying that we all need to apply the philosophy that we are discussing to our material circumstances. We cannot be saying one thing and then be feeling and opining on something different. Yeah, because then you have a philosophical contradiction. And you'll notice that I have been encouraging us all, those who want to debate, to go to the CSG debating forum. It's an open forum to debate. When we are in our philosophical space, even though we share our thinking, let's all be clear that when 10 people are arguing that 1 + 1 is not 2, then we need to look deeper into how it is that 1 + 1 is not 2. What is it? Where is their starting point? And so what Sister Portia is doing is what Nkrumah has encouraged us all to do. And it's on the screen if you would like to just read it for yourself, rather than me reading it. And then Brother Pigeon had his hand up, so I will pause for him to come in.
Thank you. I just want to share my thinking.
Sorry, you're not very clear, Brother Pigeon. Come closer to the mic so we can hear you clearer.
Brother Kwame, I wanted to share my thinking.
Much better now. Yes, let me go back to the screen to share the previous page. Whilst I draw your attention to this in the introduction. Thank you. Please proceed whilst I go on to the page. Thank you.
Thank you. What I'm interested is in the beginning, Nkrumah brings 2 persons here: the philosophers and natural scientists, who he says were the successors of the ancient philosophers. Now, what appears to be the difference between these 2 people, between natural scientists and the philosophers? And I remember when at the beginning of chapter 1, there were key philosophical questions that Nkrumah opens up in chapter 1 with. And Brother Komi, there were what there is and how what there is. Was it something like that?
Sorry, I'm trying to find the page.
There
Yes,
were
so
two questions.
yes, those are the two fundamental philosophical questions. And the question is the universe in which we live. What is it? And how do we explain it? And it is those two philosophical emerging questions when we look around our universe that then led to the answer that there are two philosophies to explain what there is. And the first one is idealism, which says that all that you see is spirits and ideas. And the second one is materialism, which says that all that you see is matter. Does that help, Brother Pigeon?
Thank you. Now, when Nkrumah now talks about these two philosophers, you see, between philosophers and scientists, it seems that the scientists who came to succeed or to take it over from ancient philosophers detach themselves from the original purpose of explaining the material world, probably.
Okay, Pigeon, let me chip in so that you can continue. So this question here is a historical question. So you can consider that there was a time in the evolution of philosophy and science when there was no such thing, if you like, as a natural scientist. Yeah, it was all just philosophy and religion, if you like. Yeah, so the sciences as we know them today, you can argue, evolved out of the philosophical question. So as each group of activists, if you like, decide to pursue a particular question, it became, depending on the methods they were using, it became a scientific inquiry. So the natural scientists, which originally, before the social scientists came along, the natural scientists, as you know, are the physicists, the chemists, the chemists and the biologists. Those, and then astronomy, which is the science of the universe. So those were the big sciences, if you like, or the natural sciences. And then later on, when the view, trying to remember the word for it, this is when there was a crisis in how the world was viewed through the scientific lens, which also means mathematical. Then the social sciences were born out of that crisis. So I'm saying that you can look at the evolution of science, and what I think this passage is saying is that when you go back, what you find are philosophers. You don't find physicists or economists. You don't find these in the history books. If you go far back, they were just philosophers. But then, as people like Newton came along, because remember, Newton was transformational, and then we had now the natural scientists. So I think that is what it's referring to. I don't know if that helps, Brother Pigeon. Thanks.
No, yeah, thank you. That helps. But I'm thinking there are two things here that when the physicists came in now, they start to focus on the physical phenomena. And that paragraph talks about it a bit.
Oh, sorry.
While
sorry,
we see...
Sorry, Pigeon, can I come in again? So did the chemists, so did the biologists, but they were all focusing on different questions. So the scientists, the physicists were focused on the laws of physics, the laws of nature, if you like. Yeah, the laws, yeah. But the biologists were also focused on the physical realm, but in terms of biology, and the chemists, the chemical components of the universe. Thank you.
Thank you. So that is very important thing to understand, because the previous philosophers were purely on the nature. So they were trying to explain those key fundamental questions that we started with. They basically was the universe, the cosmos made up of. Then that was the nature of reality. The philosophers were like trying to look deep into that. As you're saying, the physicists, chemists came in now to try to look at the physical elements. So when you even mentioned the radiations and all these things that are coming around, that was the concern of most of now the physicists who come in, or rather the scientists who came in. But again, you see, when you talk now the radiation, the spontaneous emission, or all these things, and the Newton's silence over the source of original motion and bodies, it's very clear that now Nkrumah is trying to go back to challenge the same thing. And Nkrumah is trying to challenge this classical Newtonian view that matter is inherently passive or inert. And I think what Sister Portia was trying to explain on her own personal things and the reflection that goes at personal level, because sometimes when we look at this text and then we start to talk about the continent, but how about ourselves as individuals? Are we so passive or inert? Do we require an external force or prime whatever to move us to where we want to be? Because some of us might be going sometimes through various challenges, sometimes through some task in life, sometimes through decisions you have to make in life, sometimes just to survive and raise whatever we do in studies, in jobs, and everything else we do. But do we still think that then the ability for us to succeed might come from something outside? And do we view that we are inert and passive? I remember this text down there talks about the gods and the things. I know, and I think Brother Kwame have explained this, that of course we pray, we can talk to ancestors to help us. We can pour libations. We can, maybe those who go to church can go to church. Those who go to mosque can do all that. But what are we trying to symbolize in between as we even go through this extra support? Does it show that mentally, unconsciously, unaware, we take out the power of our internal ability also to move, or to make some decisions, or to achieve what we want? And I think this is too deep, because we are naturally conditioned either by upbringing, by education, or by sometimes interactions, or even those theologies, to believe that either we need somebody somewhere to help us get something. If you want a job, maybe somewhere you need to know somebody in a corridor of power. If maybe you want to be successful, either you need to go see a doctor, either it's a wee doctor. If you want to do anything, either you pour libations. But the fundamental question, Brother Kwame, you're explaining between the spirits and the so-called material is that all these things are intertwined. It's not like there's a separation of an external force outside the internal. And the position that consciousism takes when you say, Brother Kwame, is a neutral position, is that consciousism tries to unite these two as one. So internally in our self-motion, whatever we are trying to call outside as individuals to make us move or progress is inside us. And even if you take let me go to the biblical things a bit, even though I read it somehow, even the creation theory that's put in the Bible, that God then created man out of whether sand or soil, and that was physical thing, for example. Now he takes soil and sand and put somebody. Then God combined that which can be called spirit by breathing inside that physical. And that breath gave life. So it means this body that is created, this human being, has both that is called spiritual or that which can be called abstract, which is the breath of life, and the physical combined. And that's why Brother Komi is saying that we don't, as consciousness, we don't see them as separate, but we see what is primary. God takes, for example, in that story, takes what is physical mud and whatever, put a skeleton, then get some breath inside, then things work out. So sometimes this is deep to the personal level, that what then inspires our success? Does it say that whatever we want to look outside, and not that Nkrumah is trying to disagree with the element of the spirits outside or whatever, prayers and the rest. Does it mean that whatever we are trying to look outside is actually inside us? And that we can move, and when we move and make progress, it's not because something outside helped us, it's because something inside made it work out. And only is the matter of if we realize that. And you see, even if you talk about our ancestors and the DNA, we carry their DNA. It's not that they are outside us, they are us. The realization of that element of life then turn around everything else. It turns around how one moves forward. That theory that then pushed by Newton, underlining all this of inertness that you've been explaining on motion, was basically to make us not see the ability we possess. And it is very clear that consciousness says matter is not the absolute, but it is the primary. Now, it must start from us and tap to what is inside us to make what is available or what we want. Now, even take it in the continental level. Whatever Africa maybe might need to progress, it takes Africa to tap into the resources it has, to tap into the land and tap everything else in the continent and see Africa move to where it's supposed to be. See Africa get liberated, see Africa get developed, and see Africa get united. The unity of Africa, the liberation of Africa, will not require the East or the West. It is inside if we then take that element. But if we retain the philosophical thinking of inertness and passiveness, then we might think that everything else is outside. And I think that's why even he challenges it when he talks about the Socrates and Plato in this case. Because remember, we talked about Plato and Socrates, I think it was in chapter 2, on the forms, and how actually Socrates, was it Socrates? Yeah, Socrates actually trying to challenge, and Socrates gave up something that is very fundamental based on our previous reading. When Plato, I think it was Plato, when Plato thought and came up with the idea that there were people especially made to be leaders, there are people especially made to be kings and leaders somewhere, and that elements of forms, that somebody is born to be somewhere up there, and some people are born to be down here. Some people are either born to be peasants, some people are either born to be workers, some people are born to rule over them. And that is basically also the understanding being pushed and in some corridors of philosophy. But Socrates challenged this. Socrates challenged this by that the Meno. Remember when he quotes Meno, and he used a slave boy in this case. And what Socrates was trying to reduce the forms into, what now is called brought back the forms, is that irrespective of how the society saw that young boy as a slave boy, the young boy, if given an opportunity in this case to solve what the society thinks is complex, he managed to solve it. We have seen people who have proven in various capacities. Look, for example, Traore today, a young man coming somewhere and trying to prove that he can run a country. Well, majority of the thinking might be, no, to run a country, to be a president requires some people who are either some age a bit, experience on some level, PhD orders, this and this. But no, that is not the reality. And Nkrumah says in that paragraph, when he talks on chapter 2, when he talks about these issues of Socrates and things, he concludes that we are equal, that the functional differences of a society, whether you're a teacher, you're a doctor, you're a sweeper, you're a cleaner, does not take away the intrinsic worthiness of us as a people, which means in our worthiness, we are all worth. Just that conditions and environment then subject us to various capacities and various environment, but that doesn't take away our ability as a people to do what we can do. And that's why some people could say what a man can do, a woman can do twice, or something like that. It doesn't, it brings a society that is equal, not a society that then puts some people up and some people down, and that theory that was then used to say that you are subject and some people are masters. So I think basically Nkrumah is trying to derive at all this confusion and just prove to us that these two key elements I'm pointing out is very important for us to take that new thinking if we are to progress and move forward. I'll hand there. Permit me to pause there. Thank you.
Thank you for your detailed sharing of thinking. Very detailed indeed. Thank you so much. Let's now hear from a sister, and we go to Sister Tapuwa. I have a feeling that we shall do the next session on these same paragraphs because there's a lot in there. It's already 8:30, approximately 8 minutes to 8:30. We only have about just over half an hour, and we won't be able to cover everyone. So it seems to me that we'll continue this conversation next week. Sister Tapuwa, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will pass for now. Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So you can see why we must go for another session next week when you've had time to cogitate and ruminate on the paragraphs. And yes, it is quite long. So let's go to another sister. If there is any, the sister Amma has dropped out. So there is no other sister. So we'll go to Brother Coco. Thank you.
Can I please pass for now? Thank you.
Okay, that's okay. So Brother Coco has passed. So let's go to Brother Welcome, please.
No thought.
Okay. So then let's go to Brother. Let's go to General, please.
Give thanks, family, yet again this night. Also, we give thanks to all those intellects who spoke here. It has good information. Yeah, it's quite a long text, but we'll see what we can do. First of all, I agree with everything that was said here. And yeah, of course, obviously, I go along with the great Kwame Nkrumah, Materialism, Consciencism. She's basically part of the Anunnaki science. And also to comment on the part where he says that the principle needed to be a principle of motion. Hence, he said that things were full of gods, though this smells unpleasantly of animism. He only meant to ascertain the capacity of matter for spontaneous self-motion to reject its innate. So I don't know. This is the thing I've been trying to figure out about the great Kwame Nkrumah. Whether was he aware of the Anunnaki or he was just putting it in symbols due to the time frame of the 90s, or he was going there, because from my understanding, what he is saying here is actually the literal, you understand? It's just that the white people interpreted it as if we Africans, we were worshipping imaginary gods or people we just created to idealize. No, it was actual physical people, you understand? So, and then as we keep explaining it, each and every African kingdom or each and every African clan had its own god it worships, you understand, based on which god they were born from, you understand. So I think, yeah, For me, it's just plain out simple for me. And also the issue here is saying that indeed the philosophical ancestor of all Western philosophers, Thales, hey, I don't know, because me, I know about Plutarch. I know Plutarch is the first actual logical writer from the Europeans in that Greek time. Then the rest followed and copied from him. As we all know, the rhetoric they learned from Egypt, which is funny though, that we actually accept the fact that the white people learned from the black people in Egypt how to write. Yet when we talk about the history of Africa, we're going to talk about we being in the jungle and hunting. It's just like doesn't make sense for me. You know. So, but anyway, my last point is that also when he's talking about, from my perspective, when he says that he had said that the world was not to be explained in terms of supernature, and had accordingly said that everything was what? It now fell upon him to explain why the host of things were not watery. The minimum he could do was to put it in the principle of changing water itself, so that the operation of that principle, a transmutation from a state of water to do things would be possible. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You see, H2O, you understand, the periodic table, the first elements, the elements that make up the sun that we are using to survive is hydrogen and helium, which is the first elements. So hydrogen with oxygen, when they transmutate, what happens? You get water, you see. And so that's why they say that we, as the man, woman, 70% of our body is made of what? Well, it's because our body has a lot of oxygen, you see. And so again, with that oxygen, that hydrogen makes these watery elements in us, which we call the organs and stuff. So this is just the science, ancient science. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to figure out whether the great Kwame was putting symbolism here for the black elites to decrypt this, or maybe he was just coming into something. Is very interesting. So yeah, basically that's my thinking, that this text for me, it speaks of the essence of what makes us to be the melanated beings we are, which is carbon, which is an element that is abundant basically all over the planet, is made out of carbon. Stones and animals, they have carbon in them. And then the oxygen. So I'm thinking about those fundamental basics, those fundamental elements. And then I end up thinking that all the Africans were aware of this. Yeah, well, but then the white man, because he couldn't comprehend such information, or he chose to omit it, he decided to say, no, the Africans, we were just praising some gods that we thought of. Otherwise, we're not sure where we come from. No, we know where we come from. We know which gods we're talking about. They were real, they were physical. It's not something we imagined. Just like with my mother there, sister mother there, not sister mother, Portia there. She did say, she talk about Amadlos. You see, Amadlos is ancestors, you understand? And then Amatong was basically visions. So you can also see that we as Africans, really, this information is already within us. So it's just that we have a different way of explaining it based on our environments and experiences. Thank you.
Yeah, brother General, thank you so much for reminding us that what we are reading speaks to ancient knowledge that our ancestors had, and knowledge that secret societies on African soil who were never disappeared had, and a question whether Nkrumah had access so that is a good question. I personally don't know, because of the way Nkrumah wrote, whether or not he knew but didn't say, or that deliberately chose not to say at the time he wrote. I don't know. It's possible. Nkrumah had access to books that he never made public. Some of these books were so dangerous that they were burnt. You recall when Nkrumah was overthrown, one of the goals of the CIA and the American government that overthrew Nkrumah, one of the things they targeted was Nkrumah's library, private library, I mean, where we know he was given books and told to use it anyhow he pleased. And some of these books are not published anywhere. We know that because he told us himself in the Conakry years. So it's possible that he had access to these things, and not only that his enemies also knew he knew, and his enemies knew, but denied that they didn't know. A very good example is the book, The African Origin of Civilization. I am talking because nobody, when I went around, nobody was ready to speak. So I'm just filling the time now. And then I'll come back to whoever also wants to share, because people want time to digest. It is a long text, I agree. So if you look at the book by Sheikh Anta Diop, some say Diop, but apparently it's called Diop, the African Origin of Civilization that he wrote, according to him, this is what we understand. The evidence that Diop used to write that book was found in the vaults, in the libraries of the same people. You understand? You know, they are found in Western libraries. So Diop said that he did not invent any evidence to show that that Africa is the origin of civilization. He said that information is held by the West themselves. So then the question is, if you have this information, why did you suppress it or sit on it or did not? Yes, Brother General, come in. General.
Okay. Yes, sir. I was expecting you to finish off your train of thought.
I'm happy to pause. It's a conversation. I was saying that Diop's evidence came from their own libraries, and so they suppressed this information. The question then is, why did they suppress it? Our understanding is that they suppressed it in order to justify racial capitalism, which started from enslavement. So if you are enslaving the kings and queens of the knowledge in this library that you have, if you are enslaving these people, how can that be right? So what did they do? They started fabricating history. And so you all know about the fabrication of the Greek origin of everything. If you name anything, this is how the Greeks invented it. Everything is the Greeks. Until Martin Bernal took their whole establishment on with his book, Black Athena. General, I could go on and on, so please, I'll pause there for you to come in. Thank you.
Give thanks. Thank you, sir, for everything. Yeah, I was just wanting to say that, to add on what you're saying, that Sheikh Anta Diop actually, with him and Teotilo Obenga, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name. Obenga, I think he's from Uganda or Congo, I'm not sure. So both of them, they were in that UNESCO meeting. I think it was in the 1980s, I'm not sure. So I think they were the only black scientist in that time, because it was only white people. And then obviously, as you say, the white people were continued their white supremacist agenda. And then after that meeting of Theophilo Benga, they researched so much that the information they provided, I think I had that video once upon a time. The information that they provided there was so much that the tape was stopped, basically. You can see it was cut there because they actually provided the information. In fact, one of the major achievements that they don't want to talk about Sheikh is that he in fact invented or reinvented, let's say, because we know the history of the Anunnaki. He reinvented the testing machine, how to test melanin in a dead body. Sheikh Anta Diop. What an amazing achievement.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
right. And then when he invented it, that method was used to test the mummies of ancient Egypt. And then lo and behold, the evidence showed that the mummies were black. The UNESCO meeting you are referring to happened in Cairo. I've just Googled it, Brother General. It was in 1974, UNESCO symposium in Cairo. And the other guy you are referring to was from Congo, actually, Theophile Obenga. He was from the Congo. And he accompanied Job as a co-representative. So your question initially was the old man aware of these things? I don't know. But what I do know is that he had access to some of this information, but he did not always reveal it. Yeah, he didn't always say so in public. What he didn't have. But we also know that the CIA targeted his private library, and were determined that all the books should be burnt. We all know the CIA has a habit of buying books published by black people and burning them. Yeah, they just buy them all from the market and they just burn them. This is people who say they are for freedom, freedom and democracy and liberty and so on. So yes, Brother Pigeon, come in. And then when you finish, I'll go to those who haven't spoken to see if they can now share. Yes, Brother Pigeon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. Thank you. Thank you, General, as well. Brother Kwame, I think, if I'm not wrong, we are almost coming towards maybe the end of this conversation on motion. And it has appeared several times, people asking why Nkrumah was very interested on motion. And I had attached some few questions, which are generally just what I do think, not what necessarily people must engage with, to help us link this paragraph to the reality. Sometimes when I send out our text, if not linked directly to also some few questions I ask about Africa, people think that this is that tough text there that is so philosophical. But sometimes it's very important that we learn the philosophy here and connect it smoothly with what is going on in our struggle for liberation and unification. And just to bring it to our attention, but I'll not concentrate on it much, is that our deep understanding, and Brother Kwame, you've been pointing it out several times in our meetings, in our forum, that is the point you're putting, how is it philosophically or ideologically related? As our group is more philosophical ideological. But you see, for example, when Nkrumah talks about the rejection of the supernature or the supernature in African thought, as what he's saying in the Thales here. Now, you see, Thales now sought to neutralize the influence of the priest and the heathens to explain the material world. You know, that is very fundamental. Today, for example, even if you take that element alone, look at how many of our people are full in churches, even in the places where there are so many slums. You realize that so many churches more than either an hospital, a dispensary, or mosque or whatever. And what are people seeking? They are seeking to get the heavenly explanation, the heavenly divine blessings, so that they can be able ever to succeed in life or to be able to enter heaven. That's seeing the world as being that the only success or the only thing that then open success in the world is that we only go to church and we'll be prayed for and everything will be okay. And that continuous process makes us go every day. And as what I was pointing back to as well, that if we don't know ourselves and know the power internally we possess, we will continuously seek relevance outside, continuously not believe in ourselves, believe in other forces outside for our own success. Because you see, that heavenly thing, that ideas of people running up and down, that element of people believing, and sometimes look at it, I'm not having any hatred towards it. Look at the amount sometimes we spend, especially in religious element here, to make pastors and bishops live the heavenly life. They have choppers running up and down. They build big monuments everywhere else, and you go pray there. Well, we cannot use the same resources to ensure that we set up some school somewhere, some hospital somewhere, so that when our kids get sick, probably they can get some medical attention. But when they get sick, in some places, we take them for prayer so that then they can be healed. So it's a shift of mind that I think Nkrumah is inviting us to. If we can shift our mind and experience that positive action internally, then this can help us propel to understand our environment. Because being a materialistic angle, we look at our material condition. How do we explain our material condition? How do we transform our material condition? How do we improve it? It depends on how we deeply understand the power we possess. We deeply look inside and realize that we have that, what it takes to transform our material reality. That's what I wanted also to stress upon. Thank you.
Yeah, now in terms of your first question or your first observation, my answer would be actually no, the conversation on motion is not coming to an end. In fact, it's moving up one gear, where we are now going to look at what Einstein has to say about motion and time. So the conversation on motion is going to change. But you are right that the conversation on motion in terms of the three types of motion, linear, rotary, and property change, that initial argument, yes, is coming to an end. And now we are going to move to Einstein, because Einstein was the one that now explained through the theory of relativity motion, the motion of the heavens in a different way, and why there's gravity, which is also motion or a force, etc., etc., etc. So we're going to see if those who haven't spoken yet would like to say something. I'm happy to come to Sister Portia if somebody that doesn't want to say anything yet. So let me ask Brother Welcome. Would you like to come in now?
Please pass.
Okay, if not, next week we will expect you to share. Let's go to Sister Portia now, come to Brother Coco. And then Brother Philip also hasn't spoken yet. Glenroy has just joined us. Sister Amma hasn't spoken yet. Yes, Sister Portia, please chip in. Thank you.
Thank you. Pardon the white appearing visual hand. My Zoom changed on me, so I got to get back my beautiful brown skin or beautiful black hands. So just wanted to make that note for the record. And then I have a question, clarifying question for King Brother Pigeon. I agree with all he said. I wanted to ask, does he see does he see an internal and an external, noting what he said, our ancestors are us, is there a connection to be made with, for example, trees or birds? You see, so knowing thyself and then connecting with other forms of matter. That was just a clarifying question. And then the other point that I had wanted to make is to Brother Kwame, is did Brother Kwame Nkrumah have a book on how to connect? I know Cheikh Diop had, and then a number of other persons who were into that, returning back to indigenous African principles. Did Kwame Nkrumah have a book on how to do that? Because he wrote about, in this case, what not to do. Did he write about what to do? Thank you.
Brother Pigeon, you go first in terms of the question Sister asked.
No, thank you. Yeah, I think the element of whether we connect with the trees and the external part of it, even trees have both internal and external. So it's a matter of, once we know the internal ability we have and that completeness, then even when we connect, our intention is not that the external will influence the success of the internal, but we connect at some level of equilibrium, where we then, when somebody will say we connect in the same frequency. But the element of our connection currently, without knowing the potential of what we contain internally, is that we connect externally for some fulfillment, so that the external can, whether the trees can help us now be better, or whether the water and the breeze can make us be somehow better. But when we know that we are complete internally, then our connection with whatever is trees and the environment is not for the purpose of satisfaction, in this case, or fulfillment, but for the purpose of respect and deep understanding. Because even the trees has its own completeness. So these are two complete things, like what Nkrumah will refine in some other chapters later, when there's a positive action meets another positive action. So each element must be then vibrating in the same positive frequency for them to meet. And when they meet, it's more of interdependence rather than independent on something or dependency on some one over the other, but it is an interdependence of same frequency. On the ancestors thing, is once we realize that they vibrate deep inside our DNA, that we carry them. We don't leave our ancestors to go seek them some days. They are in us and they walk with us. What you need is just only to go deep inside us and try to emanate them, or try to tap to them, rather than saying that until we go externally to get our ancestors. No, we don't go look at our ancestors. Sometimes when you go in the burial places of the graveyards, it's not to go to connect to the ancestors. Our ancestors are inside us and they're in us. So if we then take that element of a complete motion internally and complete package internally, both the physical and the spiritual connected internally, then I think it's not easy to do that. I think people do meditation, maybe tap to that level, or the yoga thing, tap to that level of consciousness. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If it's okay with Sister Portia, I will hold my answer for now. I'll come back to Sister Portia for clarity on a question later. Has Brother Coco, would Brother Coco like to come in now? Thank you. Unless he said in the chat that he can't. Let me check. Has he said so in the chat?
No, he has not.
Okay. All right. Brother Coco is not saying anything, so I take it he can't speak where he is. So let's go to Brother Philip, please. Brother Philip. Okay, Brother Philip,
I'm here.
saying anything? Are you able to share now, Brother Coco?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you
Are
very
you
much.
not able to share?
I am able to share, brother.
Right.
Thanks very much for asking.
Yeah, thank you. Please proceed. Thanks.
All right. Let me start with the most complex. Being why Dr. Nkrumah referred to both Plato and Thales. So he brings Plato and Thales to substantiate his claim that the philosophers are not really the successors of ancient philosophy. The current classical philosophers are not really the successors of ancient philosophers, because he is looking for that scientific link, scientific, let's say, substantiation of theories of the substantive philosophical materialism. And in the text, what he's talking about here, he's talking about locus. And on the locus there, see the locus as the center of gravity. Is giving the center of that theory, again, as I said, is to, substantiate it, is to test the hypothesis, make sure the hypothesis works, or no, make sure the hypothesis it cannot be rejected. So in the case of Plato was doing, using what you call forms and looking at realities to transcendent realm. So he wasn't really focused on the realities at that time. But what Aristotle then does is to relocate Plato into the concrete things for people to understand Plato in the current dynamics.
Brother Coco?
Yes.
Brother Coco, can I ask you a clarificatory question? From what you are saying, I'm hearing you to be saying that we need to differentiate between idealist philosophers like Plato and materialist philosophers, starting with Thales. Is that what you are saying?
Allow me to continue, then it will make sense.
Thank you.
What Thales did, he himself, what Dr. Nkrumah is saying there, he said, do not look more at his thought, look more at the idiom. And that's what most of the people used. They used that idiom that he put forth, that everything was water, because he hadn't proved it. He hadn't proved it, but you could argue that this is somebody who stumbled on something so profound, but couldn't really substantiate that this is how it works. But what Thales did, he helped that transition. He helped the transition from mythical dependence. People were depending a lot on what the priests were saying. He helped move from priestly authority to rational inquiry. People started asking questions. At that time, if you remember, there was a mercantile activity which then took off, using lots of water. The ships, they knew that the ships could move from water. And then he also helped for people to transition from depending on explaining everything through God, even though he himself wasn't saying that. And then they look at nature as a result of that. The other thing is moving from supernatural forces into material processes. So he is at the center of that, but at the same time, you can argue that he cannot actually concretize what is happening. He is someone who has discovered this, but doesn't understand what that all that means, or the profoundness, the how profound what he said is. That's why he said, focus more on the idiom rather than the thought. Because if you think carefully, I think General has already said that, and other speakers have said that we are made of water. We are like more than 70% water. And the human fetus develops in water, in primordial water. Everything is about water. Water plays a big part. And I also heard Brother Pigbin referring to the Bible. The Bible talks about the soil. But what we know is that we come from our mother's wombs, which is there is water. The water breaks. There is a lot there. So the things are full of gods. Here, what most of them were saying is that matter possesses its internal principle of activity, but most of the people will rather see that as something they cannot explain, hence it belongs to God. There's still that back and forth to people who don't understand that matter itself possesses powers of self-motion. They still go back to God to explain it. And with regards to consciencism, reality does not require supernatural agencies for explanation. This is what Dr. Nkrumah is telling us. And again, he's trying to say change arises from contradictions and dynamics within matter itself. And this is what we know. He said to us, as Africans, do not shy away from conflict within the different, the three strands of African heritage. That's matter itself. And then the philosophy should align to the scientific inquiry, scientific understanding, rather than theological speculation. I think this is the message that he's trying to tell us with those two paragraphs today. So he's saying move away from mythological consciousness, more towards materialist consciousness, because that is how you'll be able to get what is yours. You won't have to look at something that comes from outside to develop you. And I think when Brother Pigbin talked about the West and East, something came in my mind in what is called East. East that goes in the bread. East that goes in the bread is matter, and it makes the bread move. When you do the bread moves on its own. And again, look at the fire. With the fire, you are able to cook food. And quoting one of the fathers of Ottoman Empire, he said, bread, fire. Fire can either burn and create ash, destroy, or if you use fire properly, you can cook food for everyone. And so let me leave it at that to say he's challenging us to, again, be scientific in inquiry. Thank you.
You can now answer my question then.
So what we know is that, yeah, continue.
No, I'm saying, so you are saying yes. So yes, so in terms of the explanation of nature by nature, Thales in Ionia was the first. Yeah. And so Nkrumah, as you put, Nkrumah is encouraging us to look at the universe through those lenses, explain nature in terms of nature. So the reason racist capitalism is what it is not because of any supernatural powers. It's because of natural forces. Yeah? Is that fair, Brother Coco?
That is fair, brother. And we talked about that before, that mercantilism rose as a result of that.
Precisely.
Materialism. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will pause here and continue these two paragraphs next week, because it's a long one. So those who haven't spoken, we'll start with those who haven't spoken next week. They are Sister Amma, Brother Glenroy, Brother Philip, Sister Tapuwa, and my Brother Welcome and myself. So we will kick off next week. So please,
I will not come next week.
Brother Welcome, you need to come, otherwise we will fine you. So no, thank you all for coming. I'll hand over to Brother Pigeon to make the announcements. So here is the CSG plan, which I'm going to share in a moment. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Brother Kwame. It's very strange that majority of us didn't have a thinking, but also as you're saying, it was a long paragraph. And it means a half of us have spoken for the entire hours, which means next session, probably when the half will be able to speak, then we'll also have a complete session. So this is part one, and we'll have a part two of this. So please, I encourage members who are not able to share their thinking that we are going to retain the same text and paragraph. Please engage with it so that you can be able to be given time as well to share in this, because I think it's very crucial that we share our thinking on this paragraph. So the comments directed. Next week we will continue the same paragraph, and we'll give you time. Either those who came late, we'll give you time to at least start us off with what you think. Now, again, so we return the two paragraphs as they are. The short one and this long one, before we proceed to the next one. Now, Brother Kwame, I believe is sharing. Yeah, Brother Kwame is sharing the screen for our discussion this weekend. We are going to look at managing diversity within unity. Wow, this speaks to something else. It's a very interesting paragraph. We have a lot that's going on currently. And I think those people are now been having a long discussion and debate in our group. Probably they should be invited to join this session and do for us a presentation. And I believe that I don't want to preempt what should somebody speak of, but if you wish to share a presentation on managing diversity within unity, and I will give the case in context of the South African case, where we have diversity and how do we manage that unity within. And beyond even South Africa, many other countries, we have people of different diversity. And even at Africa at large, as a continental Africa, because our focus is the unification of Africa. How do we manage unity within this diversity we have? How do we realize the unification of Africa with this diverse community or nations, over 3,000 of them? How do you think we can make this possible? So if you have anything, a short presentation, a 10, 5 minutes, maybe maximum 15, so that we can encourage more people to come in, please do something on that. Inform me in advance. Sometimes, if it's long, you need to have a proper presentation. If short, just let me know that I'll be having maybe 5 minutes on this so that we prepare this in advance. I'd like to see more people joining this conversation. Now, the previous conversations have been uploaded on our YouTube channel. We still working on how to make them maybe so trending, but please feel free to check our YouTube channel. As Brother Kwame has been encouraging, and I think if you share the link here, please let's visit that YouTube channel. Of course, our intention is not even too much of how many people view us or follow us. Most of all, our intention is just to have a library of our thinking, our thought class, because then it become a reference for many people who come later than generation. So please share our YouTube channel and please join our YouTube as well. If you haven't, subscribe and do anything you can. I'll upload also this week's recording probably anytime within the course of the week. Still on hold, as I'd said, we did a fundraising towards the start of this month to raise funds for our Zoom subscription, and we thank members who did that. We've sent a thank you note and we've given some update on that. We want to raise some few funds to fit in the laptop for operational purposes. We're left with around £107. If you can help us meet that deficit within any time you can, any amount you can, get in touch with me or Brother Kwame so that we can fix some few things and get them running. Sometimes maybe I fail to open the meeting in advance or earlier. Sometimes I fail maybe to upload some one or two things because of technicalities we are meeting with some of the devices we are using. But please, if you wish to do something in that line, we request you to get in touch with us. There's still also an application that is an advanced stage of our AU ECOSOC KNT that's going on and led by Sister Portia. It's almost towards the end of now initial application. I think you've done all the backgrounds of what's needed. We've satisfied everything else. And we believe that Sister Portia probably in this coming week will be able to do some finalization in terms of application. Then we go to the advocacy level, see how we can complete that KNT AU ECOSOC application. Beyond that, I don't think there's any other thing I have to say, but I think I also want to remind us that let's be restrict with the rules of our study group, Consciencism group. There's a group for open debate, that is the CSG Debating Club, and Brother Kwame shared the link. If you wish that there's a topic you want us to debate, if not philosophically connected to this, put it in our CSG debating club. There's a group that has to discuss about the unification of Africa in terms of the nations. Whether you have questions about the nations of Africa, how that unity is possible. And I think that group should start to also proactively discuss those elements of either the name of Africa and other thing. There's a UNA group led by Brother Windhoek. There's still a library that is actively being supported by Sister Amma, and we need to recognize that. Sister Amma has been putting more books on our Telegram library. I've been sharing more books as well. If you haven't joined our Telegram library, please join. If you have any other book spare in your library, please upload them in our Telegram library so that you can create that repository of the books. We have so far 7,912 soft copy books as by yesterday when I was checking. So please be part of that as well. I don't think there's something I've forgotten, but back to you, Brother Kwan. Maybe you can remind me as we close the class.
Yeah, I think you've covered everything. It was never our intention. The topic is coincidental. Unity and diversity is coincidental. But you're right, there's a lot happening on the continent where people are looking at diversity through unity. Others are looking at it in the reverse. Some are saying, no, diversity first, then unity later. And these arguments are not new. They go back to the foundation of the OAU. And then in terms of some of the debates, let's forget that there are veterans amongst us, like Brother Glenroy. They look, people like Brother Glenroy have seen it all. There's nothing we are saying that they haven't either debated, argued, seen, fundraised, whatever. Yeah, I think Brother Glenroy's hand is up, so I'll let him come in. Brother Glenroy.
Thank you. Thank you, comrade. Whilst I'm alive, I hope there are other things for me to see. So I hope we're not to the point where I've seen everything. I really raised my hand up to wonder if there is a book that is on electronically available. I'm currently trying to get it for another discussion I'm having in another place. Pan-Africanism, the remembering of a nation. I don't know if you've ever, if Pigeon has come across that. I'll send him the exact detail and the author. One of the author lives currently in Dar es Salaam, but I'm trying to get in contact with him. There's a discussion that people would not have been, I don't know how many people on here would have been privy to, about the Pan-Africanist conference that have been held. People are having dispute. They're planning an 8th Pan-Africanist Congress, as if the 8th hasn't taken place in Durban, South Africa. Not Durban, Johannesburg, and somebody's planning the 9th, as if the 9th didn't take place in Togo. But lots of dispute or discussion going on. Should not dispute. But there is a book on Pan-Africanism, and I wonder if Pigeon has heard of it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Pigeon?
Now let Brother Kome just share the title. Brother Glenn, share the title, and I'll have it. I'll share it with you as soon as possible.
No, I think Brother Glenn, if I'm right, you're asking if we have it in our library, so we can have it in our library. Are you saying you want to read it? My understanding is that Brother Glenroy is saying that we should have it in our library. Brother Glenroy, am I right, or am I misinterpreting what you said? Brother Glenroy? Okay, I think Brother Glenroy may have stepped from his...
No, I'm sorry. I thought my microphone was open. It's both, actually. I would like a hard copy if possible, but I'd also like to read it electronically if it's also possible, and irrespective if I can do both. So as I said, I'm currently trying to get in touch with the author, or one of the authors, it's a joint book, and to see if I'm able to obtain that. So it's just really by whatever means we can obtain a copy, because as I said, the one of the author lives in Dar es Salaam, so in theory he should be available for contact. But he has responded so far. We're trying to chase up a copy of the book.
All right, thank you very much, Pigeon.
Thank
I think that is clear, Pigeon. Yeah. Okay. So General has made a point, which I think we've made in the past, that we need a media officer for CSG. A lot of the work is just being done by a few people, but we need more of us to help. Yeah. So please, if you can help with media, if you have I don't know, these days AI skills as well, etc., etc. Please make yourself available to us. Thank you. That's it. It's 12:09, 12:08 Ghana time, 9 UK time. I don't know what Canada time is, but I know it's about midnight in Kenya. And we'd like to thank you all for coming. I'm going to pause the stop the recording. But before that, I want to thank you all for coming. And please, we'll see you all next week to continue the discussion of today's reading. Thank you.